Your mind has replayed that conversation again tonight, hasn't it? The one from last week, maybe last year. You've rewritten what you should have said so many times you could recite it in your sleep. And still, it won't let you rest. More than 1,000 years ago, in a quiet monastery in China, a young monk arrived carrying that same exhaustion. He had studied for years. He had read every text he could find, and his mind had never once stopped moving. He asked the wisest teacher he could find for the one secret that would finally bring him peace. The teacher gave him 4 words that ended a search that had taken years, and that can end yours tonight too. Stay with me for the next 30 minutes, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the busiest minds keep missing the simplest answer, and exactly what to do the next time your thoughts refuse to let you go. We call it overthinking, but that word is almost too gentle for what it actually feels like. It's your mind treating every unresolved moment like an emergency that must be solved right now at 2 a.m., lying flat on your back, staring at nothing. Replaying an argument as if replaying it enough times will finally change how it ended. Rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet, as if worry were preparation. Reliving an embarrassing moment from years ago as if the shame needs to be freshly felt tonight for no reason at all. Here's the strange truth almost nobody says out loud. Not one single problem in your life has ever actually been solved by this kind of thinking. Not one. And yet the mind keeps insisting. Just one more replay, just one more scenario, and then it will finally feel safe. It never does, so let's find out why. And let's find out what actually works, starting with a monk, a bowl, and 4 words that changed everything. There once lived in a small mountain temple in old China an elderly Zen master known simply by the name of his town. A teacher so quietly wise that students traveled great distances just to sit in the same room as him for a single morning. One day, a younger monk arrived at his gate. He had spent years in his home temple, memorizing scripture, studying every commentary he could get his hands on, debating the nature of enlightenment late into the night with other students. And instead of feeling closer to peace, he felt further away from it than ever. The more he learned, the louder his mind became. Every answer just produced 3 new questions. He had heard that this old master held a kind of understanding that could not be found in any book, and he had come to ask for it directly. He was given a small room in the guest quarters, and for several days, he simply observed the life of the monastery. And something confused him deeply. The older monks who spent their days doing the simplest chores, sweeping the stone paths, carrying water, folding robes, seemed calmer, steadier, and somehow freer than the sharpest scholars he had studied under his entire life. How could someone sweeping a courtyard understand something that had escaped him after years of study? He didn't have an answer. So, one morning after finishing his breakfast, he was finally brought before the old master. He bowed low, and everything he had carried in his mind for years rushed toward his throat at once. Every question, every doubt, every sleepless night of thinking too hard about a truth that refused to reveal itself. He managed only one sentence. "Master," he said, "please teach me, give me the path to peace." The old master looked at him for a long moment, unhurried, the way a mountain looks at weather passing beneath it. Then he asked a question that seemed to have nothing to do with anything. "Have you eaten this morning?" The younger monk, caught off guard, answered honestly, "Yes, master, I've eaten." And the old master said only this, "Then go and wash your bowl." That was the entire teaching. No lecture, no scripture. The audience was over. The younger monk walked out into the courtyard, bowl in hand, half expecting to feel cheated. Had he traveled for this? He knelt at the washing stone, and the cold water ran over his fingers, and somewhere in that simple, ordinary motion, the water, the wood, the morning light on the stone. Something in him went quiet. There was no next question waiting. There was no unfinished argument from yesterday. There was only this bowl, this water, this single moment asking absolutely nothing else of him. For the first time in years, his mind had nowhere else to go, because there was nowhere else it needed to go. Here's what almost everyone misses about this story. The old master was not brushing the young monk off. He was answering him with total precision. The monk had asked where peace could be found, and the master pointed directly at the one place the monk had never actually looked, the task already sitting in his own two hands. Overthinking is very often the mind searching for your life everywhere, except the place it's actually happening. It searches Tuesday while you're living Sunday. It searches an old wound while a warm bowl sits untouched in front of you. It insists that if it just turns the problem over one more time, safety will finally arrive. But has it ever arrived that way? Not once. Not for that monk, and if you're honest, probably not for you either. The practice from this story is almost embarrassingly simple, and that's exactly the point. The next time your mind starts spinning at full speed, don't try to out-argue it. Don't try to think your way to calm. That's asking the very thing that's spinning to also be the thing that stops it. Instead, find your bowl. Something small, physical, real, right in front of you. Wash an actual dish slowly and feel the water. Make your bed with full attention. Pour a cup of tea and actually watch it fill. This isn't avoiding your problems, it's returning your mind to the only place it can ever actually think clearly from, right here. The hands lead. The mind eventually follows. There is another old teaching story that shows what happens when we take this even further. When the mind decides that peace is something to be achieved through sheer effort and force. A young student had taken up daily meditation with tremendous seriousness. Every single day, for hours at a time, he sat perfectly still in the courtyard, determined to force his way into enlightenment through pure willpower and concentration. One afternoon, his teacher walked by, picked up a rough tile from the ground, and sat down beside him. Without a word, the teacher began rubbing the tile against a stone over and over as though polishing it. The student tried to ignore it and continue meditating, but eventually curiosity won. "Teacher," he asked, "what are you doing?" "I'm polishing this tile," the teacher replied, "into a mirror." The student almost laughed. "You can polish that tile for 100 years, and it will never become a mirror. That's not how a tile works." The teacher looked at him and smiled. "And you can sit here in forced, rigid stillness for 100 years, gritting your teeth, straining every muscle in your mind, and it will never become peace. That's not how a mind works either." This story lands so close to home for anyone caught in the exhausting loop of overthinking, because so many of us try to solve overthinking by thinking harder about it. We lie awake trying to force our brain to relax. We tell ourselves, "Stop worrying" 50 times, as if repeating the command with enough intensity will finally make it obey. But force doesn't create stillness. It only creates more friction. A pond doesn't become clear because you scrub at the water. It becomes clear the moment you stop disturbing it and simply let it settle. The mind works the same way. The practice here is about effort versus allowing. The next time you notice yourself straining to force your thoughts to stop, clenched jaw, gripping the problem tighter, trying to outmuscle your own worry, pause and ask, am I polishing a tile right now? Am I trying to scrub my way into a stillness that can only ever arrive by being allowed, never demanded? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for an overactive mind is stop fighting it directly, and instead simply give it something small and real to rest on, like that bowl from the first story. And let the noise settle on its own, the way water always eventually does if you just stop stirring it. There's an old teaching story, often traced back to ancient Chinese philosophy, about a skilled archer competing in 3 very different contests. In the first contest, the prize was a simple clay tile worth almost nothing. The archer stepped up, breathed easily, and shot with complete, effortless skill. Every arrow struck true without a single wasted thought. In the second contest, the prize was a brass belt buckle, something with a little more value. As he drew the bow, this time, he noticed his hands were slightly less steady. His aim wavered just barely, and his shots, while still good, weren't quite as clean. In the third contest, the prize was a bar of solid gold. This time, as he raised the bow, his heart pounded, his palms grew damp, his mind filled with the value of what he stood to win and what he stood to lose. His hands trembled, his focus scattered. He missed shots that an hour earlier would have been effortless for him. Nothing about his skill had changed between the 3 contests. The bow was the same, the target was the same distance. The only thing that changed was how much his mind had begun spinning around the outcome. And that spinning is exactly what stole his steadiness. This is overthinking in one of its most common, everyday disguises. Before an important conversation, a job interview, a first date, a big decision, the mind starts calculating everything that could go wrong, every possible outcome, every worst-case scenario, all before you've even taken the first step. And ironically, that exact spinning is often the very thing that causes us to stumble. You've felt this. The presentation you rehearsed so obsessively in your head that you froze the moment you actually stood up to give it. The conversation you overthought so heavily beforehand that you said the awkward thing you were trying so hard to avoid. The practice here is what old teachers sometimes called aiming for the tile. Before something important, notice if your mind has quietly turned the moment into gold, inflating the stakes, rehearsing disaster, treating an ordinary human moment like a verdict on your entire worth, and gently, consciously bring it back down to a tile. Just this conversation, just this next sentence, just this next small, ordinary action done as simply and steadily as you'd do anything that didn't matter so much. Skill was never lost in any of those 3 contests. Only steadiness was. Protect your steadiness, and the skill you already have will carry you the rest of the way. One more story, and then we'll bring everything together. 2 monks were once standing outside a monastery gate, watching a flag snap and ripple violently in a strong wind. One turned to the other and said, "Look how the flag moves!" His companion disagreed immediately. "You're mistaken," he said. "It is not the flag that moves, it is the wind that moves." Back and forth they went, each one certain, each one building an increasingly clever argument for why the other was wrong. A senior teacher happened to be passing by and overheard the entire debate. He stopped, listened for a moment, and finally said, "It is not the flag that moves, it is not the wind that moves, it is your minds that are moving." Neither monk was technically wrong about the physics in front of them, but both of them had missed something far more important. They had turned a simple, passing moment, wind-moving fabric, into an entire argument, an entire identity to defend, hours of mental energy spent proving a point that changed absolutely nothing about the flag or the wind. This is so much of what overthinking actually is. It's rarely about the original event at all. It's the elaborate argument the mind builds around the event, the version where we're right and they're wrong, the version where we should have said the perfect comeback, the version where every possible future scenario gets debated in exhausting detail. The flag was always just moving in the wind. It was the minds standing beside it that turned a simple fact into hours of noise. The practice here is noticing when you've started arguing with a flag. The next time you catch your mind building an elaborate case, replaying an argument to win it retroactively, defending a position no one is even challenging anymore, debating a hypothetical future that hasn't happened, pause and ask gently, is this actually happening right now in front of me? Or is this just wind and I'm the one making it move? Often, simply noticing the argument is enough to let it go quiet. Let's gather everything these 4 stories have handed us, so you can actually use it the next time your mind won't rest. First, find your bowl. When your thoughts start spinning, don't try to think your way out. Return to something small, physical, and real. A dish, a breath, the warmth of a cup in your hands. Let your hands lead your mind back to now. Second, stop polishing the tile. Notice when you're straining and forcing yourself toward calm. Stillness can't be gripped into existence. It settles on its own the moment you stop stirring the water. Third, aim for the tile, not the gold. When your mind inflates a moment into something enormous and high stakes, gently bring it back down to size. One sentence at a time, one small, ordinary step at a time. Fourth, notice when you're arguing with a flag. So much of overthinking is an elaborate case built around a moment that has already passed or hasn't happened yet. The instant you notice the argument, you've already loosened its grip. None of these require a monastery, a cushion, or hours of your day. They require noticing and then choosing again and again to come back to the bowl in your own 2 hands. Your mind isn't broken because it overthinks. It's simply been running the same old habit for years without ever being shown another way. Tonight, you have 4 small doors it can walk through instead. The next time your thoughts start circling at 2 a.m. or racing before something important or arguing a case no one asked you to make, remember the old master's 4 words. Have you eaten? Then wash your bowl. What is your bowl tonight? The one small, real thing in front of you waiting quietly for your hands. Tell me in 1 word down in the comments. I read every single one. If this story brought you even a few minutes of stillness, subscribe and stay a while longer. There are more old stories here waiting patiently, the way the bowl always does.